But now I'm going to play the power joker with a jet engine. Let me show you how much power one of those has got. Well, to find out how powerful a jet engine is, first you need a jet. Well, we've got one. Our plan is to drive a car behind the 747 when the engines are at full power. The question is, how far can the engines blow the car off course? It's not as easy as you might think. It's too dangerous to drive them under here, behind the engines. They have to be well clear. In fact, they have to be way back here, past the tail, and then a bit more. That's a good 50 yards behind the engines. Well, that was a modern, streamlined aerodynamic car. So let's have another go now and see what happens when we let loose the top gear crosswind on something a little more, well, slab-sided. A Citroen 2CV. Big engine, lightweight hippie car. This should be fun. Okay, here we go again. The engines are up to 58,000 pounds of thrust. The car is released. And 3, 2, whoa, crikey! Well, there you go, you see. Next time you're out, you think you might encounter crosswinds or have to drive behind a 747 at takeoff thrust, you're better off with a Mondeo than a 2CV. It's a service we provide, this stuff, you know.
Now, the hazard to ground personnel, it starts from the moment that the engine starts spinning, right? When the engine starts passing about 20%, there's actually enough suction force in front of the engine to suck someone in and seriously harm them. When the pushback is finished, we will set the parking brake. We will verify both engines have been stabilized, that there's no faulty engine indications. We'll talk to the start leader. The start leader will disconnect any pushback truck that might have been needed. They will disconnect the headset and they will move away from the aircraft. And only when we see that they have moved away and that they hold up what we call a bypass pin, which is used to take away the hydraulic pressure from the nose wheel when they are being pushed back. When they do that, we know that we are now okay to start asking for taxi, right? But these procedures are enforced in order to make sure that everyone is clear, that it's perfectly safe to start the engines, and that we don't start taxiing before everyone has moved out of the way. So how far in front do you need to be in order to run a risk to be sucked into the engine then? So this means that if the engine is running and you run in closer than that, you run a risk of being sucked into the engine. There's also a hazard area about 2 meters behind the engine cowling. And that is because when the engine is sucking in air, it's not only sucking the air from the front, it's actually sucking from slight behind as well, so from the edges. And this means that if you are within 2 meters but behind the engine, you might still be sucked into the engine.
Everyone. Okay, I had a whole lot of people ask me to do my take on the Air Force plane, supposedly in Afghanistan, that all these people were running after and jumping on and falling off or whatnot. So I'm going to give you my take on it. It's really, really simple. Okay, let's watch the video first. Okay guys, what you're looking at is a big float and some crisis actors. Kind of like this right here. You see this float in this parade? How the boat's just going down the road? It has a motorized vehicle underneath it and it's covered so you can't see it. Well, that's the same thing that's going on right here. But what we're going to do is slow the video down and zoom in on it. Now check this out right here. If you look at the very front of the plane, see that crowd of people? You don't see a wheel there. Where's the wheel at? You know how you see a crowd of people right there? They're blocking that first little motorized vehicle that's pulling the front of it. And see that guy waving his hands? He's a distraction, so you're not looking back there in the background. You see, now look in the middle of the plane, you don't see a lot of people at all. And then all of a sudden back here on the back, you see this big thing just sticking outside the plane. Everybody's sitting on it. Well, that's the other motorized vehicle pulling the back of it. And notice these guys do a little pushing scene to distract you from looking back there. Once again, let's look at it again. Look at that crowd of people around the first vehicle pulling that float. There's no wheel there. There should be a great big wheel right there, but look at them. They're crowded up right where you can't see it. And you can see it squared, whatever is pulling it. Nothing here in the middle at all because there's no weight there. Here's the rest of the weight. Here's the rear vehicle pulling it. And you notice they're sitting on it and crammed around it. I mean, it's really, really simple. One more time. Look at the front of the plane. Look at the square vehicle pulling it and them surrounding it. Now watch this guy run by and wave his hands up, smiling, right in front of the camera up close to totally distract you from that background of what's pulling that float. And the second distraction happens right here in front of the rear vehicle that's pulling this float. You have these couple guys pushing each other right here to distract you from that rear vehicle that's pulling that float. Not to mention this guy right here in the back. Check him out, just casually on his cell phone. And also there's a lot of obvious stuff in here that you can tell that this thing is fake. I mean, for one, look, there's no engines in the engine casings. The windows of the plane. Look at the windows of the plane. It's just a aired up float. That's all it is. Just a big aired up float sitting on two motorized vehicles pulling it. You can think what you want to. I just proved it to you, and it is what it is. The truth hurts.
Deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time. A legion of doom.